Hello, welcome back. It is week 165 on Out on the Line. I'm Jeff with my co-host Alex. As always, Alex, how you doing this week?
Jeff, y'all about to learn a lesson in this delicatessen because we have an episode that is absolutely stuffed to the gills. And might I say, the pinters are drinking themselves into form. And this one is shaping up to be an absolute creamer. I'm feeling match fit, Jeff. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing very well. And this is going to be a bit of a redemption episode for me because we're going to talk about our Spotify Wraps. And mine is much less embarrassing this year than it was last year. And folks, you can go back and listen probably about a year ago to the episode that we talked about them, and it was basically all just new metal trash that I was listening to, and I still listen to that. But the lineup is much more redeeming for me this year.
So, do you want to take like a quick stab at either each other's top or all five? I'm comfortable.
Yeah, let's guess. I don't want to, because I feel like if we're trying to guess, like, oh, at your number one spot is this artist. Yeah. I mean, it's a big world out there, buddy. I don't know if I have the skills or the mind reading talent to do that. So I would say if we can try to name a couple of artists that are going to be in each other's top fives.
Yeah, I can rattle
anywhere
off
in
five,
there we acknowledge.
Top five, yeah.
Okay. Well, do you want to go first then? If you sound pretty confident.
In no particular order. Turnstile, Tyler Childers, Coheed and Cambria, Bruce Springsteen, and Sturgill Simpson. I think you had a gritty outlaw country year with just a hint of space age prog rock in the form of Coheed.
3 out of 5.
Okay.
Sturgill, Tyler Childers, and Turnstile.
Oh my God, Coheed and Springsteen do not make the cut.
So Springsteen's not as much of a surprise. He's sporadic on this list. Coheed is a surprise. I think for every year since a decade. I mean, they've been top 5. They probably were number 6 or 7. I mean, I can't imagine they were very far out. I feel like my habits didn't change much in the amount I listened to them. But yeah, you got 3 out of 5: Sturgill, Tyler Childers, and Turnstile. There one you might get. The other one, I don't. It's a total left field. I don't think you'll get it.
Total left field.
Yeah.
I could see one of the pop sensations that we covered. I'm going to say Billie Eilish.
You're on the right track, but no.
Olivia Rodrigo.
No.
Warmer, colder.
I think about
Chapel Roan.
No.
Damn it.
Colder, for sure.
Sabrina Carpenter?
No. That's too pop. Too pop.
Son of a bitch.
I will say popular. Very popular.
Ariana Grande?
Solo. No. No.
You said popular and I thought of Wicked.
No. I wouldn't even. Oh, is that a song in that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. I haven't seen it. It's so closer with Ariana Grande, though, than the others.
I confess, Jeff, I'm proper
Somebody
stumped.
we reviewed this year.
Casey Musgraves?
It's the Queen Bee herself.
Beyonce.
I think that Cowboy Carter album got a lot of play.
All right, get it.
Yeah, and the other one I'm just going to tell you because I don't think there's any shot, is Rise Against. So I think it was strictly due to, there was like 1 month where I just decided to go back and listen to the Siren Songs from the Counterculture album. And then I went back and listened to the Unraveling album, and then Revolutions Per Minute, and then Suffer in the Witness. So I went on to this little streak of listening to like heavy Rise Against. And they're also on one of the playlists that I listen to all the time. So like there's probably 5 or 6 songs of theirs on that playlist, which also come up. So I think they just I spammed them for like a month, and then the rest of the year just kind of, even with everything else, got them on the list. And then, okay, so your top artists.
Hit me.
This is gonna be probably, I'm not confident in this because you listen to a ton of stuff. I'm gonna say Chapel Roan, Frank Zappa, feel like I don't know how much you listen to him anymore. I'm gonna say Steely Dan. I'm stumped. Tell me how many if I got any of those three.
You got one.
Who was it?
The Dan.
The Dan. Okay.
I'll spoil it. They were number one overall for the second year in a row.
Yeah, I figured. I'm gonna say. I want to say no. I feel like you were listening. I feel like that wasn't this year. Grateful Dead wasn't this year, so I don't think
Mm-mm.
they're. I don't think they're up there. Man, I'm stumped. I'm terribly because I feel like you're very you will give everything a chance.
Yes, and thank you for the compliment. I am pretty
Yeah.
open-minded and very humble as well. Um, so yeah, full disclosure, mine is a total like indie hipster piece of shit top five. Number one was Steely Dan, and
Uh-huh.
then I think in this order, Steely Dan, solo Donald Fagen, which I don't think you probably would have guessed. Dr. Dog, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, and I crushed it so hard since it came out, Jordy Greep.
Oh, I've considered saying Jordy Greet, but the others would not have entered my brain.
Yeah. My top song was a Steely Dan song. It was the song Cousin Dupree,
Uh-huh.
which is about fucking your cousin. So
Sounds about right for the day.
that was how my year ended.
Well, I had on my top song. Can you guess what my top song was of this year?
Scooter Blues.
No, not a Sturgill song. It's not anybody. It's not an artist that was on my top artist list.
Fascinating. Shit. Not Like Us.
That nailed it.
Yes. Fuck
Nailed.
yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And Jeff, tell them what they've won.
Well, folks, you have won a review of the new Kendrick Lamar album, GNX. Now, this was not anticipated because no one even really knew this was coming out. I think everybody had realized that it had been quite a while since we'd heard anything regarding the Drake and Kendrick feud. Other than that, Kendrick had absolutely buried him, and Drake was filing lawsuits against UMG and or Universal Music Group and Spotify, I think, that they were basically artificially boosting the Kendrick songs. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I've seen a lot of TikToks of just at parties wherever in public that Not Like Us was playing, and everybody was into it. That song took over the country. And I think everybody except for Drake fans kind of wanted to see that happen to Drake, I think is another part of it. He picked a few people out. Like in the past, he had, kind of buried Meek Mill, but it was in a time where Meek Mill couldn't respond because I think he was literally in jail or something like that. Something was going on where he couldn't respond to it. And then he had the little battle he did with Pusha T that got squashed because Pusha T was going to release even more songs even after the story of Adidon, where he exposed that Drake had a secret child. And Drake like got that shut down with lawsuits. So I'm sure he was like trying to do the same kind of thing now, but it just made it look even worse. And then Kendrick dropped this album. I mean, you can't have a worse year than Drake or a better year than Kendrick, I think, right now, the way things are going.
And not to oversimplify it, but this album is a giant fuck you to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I've seen this described as a victory lap and self-congratulatory and not as genius as it thinks it is, and all these other monikers. The guy is the first and only rapper to win a Pulitzer, so the guy can write. He has a super
DMX
unique
got
flow.
robbed.
I'll buy that. I'll buy that. His shit's intense. I mean, you could say the same thing about Tupac. Tupac is all over this album. Even like when Drake is not in the crosshairs, you got somebody. Either haters in a general sense, or he's miffed at Snoop Dogg for sharing the AI Drake song.
Mm-hmm.
Lil Wayne was kind of pissed that he didn't get the halftime show and like didn't really show Kendrick Lamar the respect that he probably deserved. So it's not like he does a complete and utter burial like he was on these singles in this fucking feud with Drake. To deliver something like this is the biggest fuck you could give any of these people. And really with Drake,
Mm.
it's just putting dirt on his grave at this point.
Yeah, and well, another scoop just landed because on Kendrick's tour with SZA,
Mm.
they're stopping at the Rogers Center in Toronto.
Well.
And I can't imagine like being Drake. I think that I don't know, that might be the only city in Canada that they're going to. And it's just like, to me, it's so effortless that he's just going to keep Drake down there. He's be like, you're never coming up for air again. Like, people are not buying your shit anymore. Like, it's done. The only people that care about you are the ones that rode hard for you through all the BS. Like, anybody that was just a casual Drake fan, there's no casual Drake fans anymore. I don't think you can be. It's embarrassing. I think with this album, he could have focused it all on Drake, and there's certainly quite a bit of that. But I think there was some also like reflection about the feud rather than more attacks against Drake, because I think he realizes, just like the rest of us do, that it's not even a contest anymore. There's a lot of callbacks to that, like in the music video or the beginning of Not Like Us, you hear part of Squabble Up, and it's just like there's all these just second and third and fourth layers to everything that Kendrick does on this album, that to listen through it for the first time is fantastic, but to really dig into it, you understand that he is different. There's rappers throughout time that like they can make a hit song, like T.I. can make a great song, can rhyme really well. His rhymes are like fairly clever, but he's not really getting that deep into things. Jay-Z is another one. They're not hitting the level of political discourse, of relationship discourse, of racial discourse, of all of these things like Kendrick is, while being so like self-assured that he is a voice for these things, that he is, somebody like I think knowing the respect he has for himself, and it's, I think it's an understanding that he's kind of the best one doing this right now. It's not cocky of him to say so. It's just confident. I don't know anybody that's doing things at the level that he is right now in this genre. I think there's a lot of people doing very interesting things, like Tyler, the Creator. I thought that album was great. I think a lot of what he's done is great, but I think that's a different sort of style. And like you could say maybe Childish Gambino has had a really great run the past decade or so, but they're not doing things with the aggression. They're not it's like these multiple characters that Kendrick is always doing, like kind of exposing different parts of his psyche and trying to work them out and figure out kind of how they fit in with each other and which one he should listen to. There's kind of the feelings, like I get a lot of this, I get the same feelings I'd get listening to some of the better Eminem songs. There's plenty of the Eminem songs that are just like super raunchy and just like, go way over the line of good taste. But then there's a lot of them where, he's talking about, some very real things and real feelings, albeit in a very crude way. But the way he would put words together, you'd get these light bulb moments where you understood something that you hadn't before, even though you'd heard it 20 times already. They're just so good at hiding these little things within all these lyrics, like all these references to something else, these callbacks to the culture that they grew up with. I think it's something to like behold and look at this as an art piece rather than just, okay, it's another album full of rap songs. I think there's, Kendrick has made, like, Damn is a great album, but it's not as good as To Pimp a Butterfly. There's different kind of versions of himself that he does, and he can make the dance songs. He can make the bangers. But this album is such a good combination of the bangers and the best that he's ever been lyrically, that it's hard for me to say this is better than To Pimp a Butterfly or Good Kid, Mad City, but it's at least as good, and I'm not going to argue with anybody if they tell me that it's better.
I will confess to something with rap music, which is it's not really a genre that I follow that closely, because it's Game of Thrones level intricate in terms of the different scenes and who's coming up where and who's feuding with who. And sometimes you kind of need to know that shit to like grasp these innuendos in these songs. which makes it kind of like a full-time thing to try to keep up with the lore. And that's always kind of kept me from like really diving in. But you get someone like Kendrick Lamar, and it's undeniable. To me, he has to be the best in the biz right now because this is highly interesting. This is highly enjoyable. I just don't like it because rap is such a narrow genre for me. Like, I don't reach out into the greater rap sphere and consume a lot of it. This is the stuff that I give my time and energy to because this is fucking art.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think there's kind of a subset of rappers that are known for the lyrics, right? Are known for very intricate rhyme schemes. So you have people like Tech Nine or Talib Kweli, or Common, these people that you could have it be like a conscious rapper would fall into that, and then you have somebody that's kind of rapping for the sport of it, these intricacies, and then you have your other end where they're someone like a Pitbull that's just making like club bangers and that's all they're concerned about. I don't know if even know if you'd call Pitbull a rapper at this point, but you get what I'm saying. Is like you have these two distinct things. Very rarely do you get somebody that can do both. And Kendrick is one of those people that can do both. These like Not Like Us was immediately in every nightclub in the country and probably played multiple times a night and everybody was into it. Like you don't get songs like that more than maybe once a year. And you don't get songs that hit at that level more than maybe once a decade. Like I can't remember the last song that hit like Not Like Us did. And to have the callbacks to that throughout this album, to have on TV Off when he just yells, it gets halfway through and it changes up the beat, and then all of a sudden you hear Mustard on the beat. Mustard! Like you just hear that yell. And you can tell that he is paying such close attention to the art of everything that he's doing, but he is having a great time doing it. And the Mustard thing was another callback to like, that was obviously a huge part of why Not Like Us was so important, was because people started choosing sides. And you hadn't really seen that. Like you'd see two rappers feuding with each other. You might see one or two other people like kind of latch on to one side or the other. And that's kind of how it goes. You don't typically see an entire industry like kind of choosing sides like what happened with Not Like Us. And calling back to that was just like a battle cry when he was yelling Mustard in the middle of that song. And that's what everybody remembers about that song. But if you listen to the lyrics and listen to every way he put that song together, there's so much thought and detail to everything on this. And I hate to say it, but having Jack Antonoff on this was perfect because I think it gave it just felt different. It didn't feel like a Swizz Beatz song when they used to do it with DMX, where that sounded really fresh, but then the whole industry started doing that. And maybe that's what happens as Jack Antonoff starts doing rap records, but I have to imagine this is not going to be a regular thing for him. So that it's going to remain kind of unique in that sense of having something like this happen. It'd be like Rick Rubin when he would produce the Beastie Boys or when he produced Jay-Z. It's like just these people that kind of approach things differently and have a different kind of mind, or they come from a different genre, but not feeling like it didn't belong. I think that's not something you see all the time, because like Rick Rubin's worked with Johnny Cash. I think he's worked with the Rolling Stones. Like he's done everything. He's not typically just a rap producer. And Jack Antonoff, I don't know if he's ever produced a rap song that I'm aware of. I think it's all been just the pop girls that I can think of, and his own stuff in Bleachers. But it's like, to have that happen, I feel like it's just Kendrick being like, I can do whatever I want right now. I think in a sense is what he's saying with that.
I gotta be honest, I'm off this kind of Jack Antonoff, this Jack Antonoff clowning. I think he's just kind of in the last couple years done way too much good stuff to like prove himself to me. And like working on an album like this is a big old feather in his cap. I gotta back off I have to give Jack Antonoff his flowers and kind of like credit where credit is due. It worked when he's able to curb some of the weird ass impulses that showed up on that Miley Cyrus album, which in retrospect I realize is kind of like run what you brung, right? Like, I think maybe Jack Antonoff walks into that session and is like, these choices work for something like this. These aren't going to work on the Kendrick Lamar album.
Mhm.
So I can kind of like forgive it in retrospect. I just think he has like a weird hat on a hat production element thing sometimes that is not on this at all and hasn't showed up lately in the last couple things that we've experienced that he was involved
Mhm.
in. So again, excellent dance partner. Same thing with SZA. There's like when those two get together, there's star power, and not even like in a commercial sense. It's just they fit so perfectly. And the fact that they're going on tour together,
Mhm.
except you have to have a Cash App credit card to even get the pre-sale act. Fuck that shit. I hate the music industry.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, this is an album like you look at it in context with Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. And that was all like a very minimal, very restrained, super introspective album where it was kind of like the dissolution of the like rap braggadocio and the ego, not like
Mhm.
I've truly humbled myself, but kind of focusing on the bigger picture beyond that and doing it in a very stripped back way was very, very interesting. And this album is the ego coming back with a
Mhm.
vengeance because again, he can make something like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers and like bare his soul, and then you still have people being assholes to him and trying to find ways to take him down a peg. And he's not going to let that happen. I don't think they're very close anyway, but he's not going to let anyone knock him out. Look, Kodak Black was all over Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. And there's some alleged shady shit about Dr. Dre out there, and he's not shy about working with Dr. Dre. So you can't say he's scared of controversy or taking some moral stand. So you can't get him on that. Like these things kind of bounce off of him, but it doesn't mean that he clearly isn't fucking annoyed by it and doesn't feel it. So he comes out with the greatest weapon he has, which is his music. And I wouldn't call this like a hateful, spiteful album, despite it being a fuck you. It's a fun, gleeful, like sometimes it feels good to just say fuck you to someone
Mhm.
who has earned a fuck you. We
Yeah.
are so demonetized at this point.
Yeah. And he does it throughout the whole album.
Sure does.
That's why it's fantastic. I think I'm glad you brought up the kind of juxtaposition between Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers and kind of the themes and ways he went about creating that album versus this one, where I think he went out on this one and he's like, I'm gonna put how many songs on this album? 11? 12. I'm gonna put 12 heat seeking missiles in this silo and I'm gonna fire them all. And that's what every single one of these songs are. And there were so many moments during this album where I was just like, oh my gosh, like I couldn't believe he just said that, or I couldn't believe he was able to like kind of manipulate the rhyme to do what he did with it. And he'd have his like kind of very bouncy sort of flows where he's really just kind of riding the beat. And then he'd have the times where he would just go very quickly because he can rap really fast if he wants to, but just very much a very like intricate spitfire, like kind of quick sort of rhyme scheme. And he would switch between those things. He would do different voices, different characters. I think it was pretty deliberate that he didn't really have any other. I mean, I guess Roddy Ricch is like a pretty famous rapper at this point, but other than that, like these are people that you're going to know if you're like really into rap music. But other than that, I think some of this was like kind of putting some other people on. I think that was the idea with some of this. It's got to be because it's on probably the biggest rap album of the year. I don't know if you'd say this was bigger than Glorilla, but I think the way that it hit social media was more impact than anything else I'd seen from any other album this year. Um, I
No,
think having all those artists on there, it's gonna help their profile because he could have picked anybody. It's like anybody in the rap world, unless they're like friends with Drake, they're gonna be on Kendrick's album if they get asked. And these are the people he chose because either he likes them and wants to help them out, or he just likes specifically what they do.
yeah, and no offense to Glorilla, that was a solid album, but this is 100% like that was kind of like a coming out party for her. This, I think, I don't want to be hyperbolic and call it like a star-making vehicle, but I think there are a lot of people on here who don't have Wikipedia pages who are on this album, and that's a hell of a launching point. And a lot of them prove that, like, specifically, I don't think that Dodie Six necessarily like reinvented the wheel, but he's got a cool sound that
Mm-hmm.
totally fit with the song that he was on um in Hey Now. So it was enough to make me go, oh, I want to go see what like his solo stuff sounds like. So I mean, mission accomplished there. It got me to jump off and check his shit out. And so I'm not necessarily like a star is born, but it made me curious and it made me check it out. Kendrick Lamar at this point knows how to make an album feel like an event. You can know that Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers is coming. You cannot know that this album is coming. And it's that's why it's going to be such a good Super Bowl halftime show, because
Mm-hmm.
he's also at the core of this an entertainer, a song and dance man. And his Super Bowl halftime show, when they announced that, I said, oh well, fuck me, it's going to be the last one ever, because you know he's going to do some wild shit. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if some people are worried, like, hey man, maybe don't do, you know, the Drake PDF file song at the Super Bowl halftime show. Does he? It was a pretty popular song, Jeff. Do you make him
Yeah,
change the words like it's Ed Sullivan?
I think
We
I
don't
think
know
you
what's
have to.
happening.
I think you have to do it, and he's going to do it live in the stadium, and they're going to censor it for TV.
Call Drake a PDF file in front of national
So,
television.
or they'll make him do it as part of like a medley, and make that part of the song not part of the medley.
That's good 50-50 booking.
Yeah,
It's an elegant solution.
yeah. I think that's how maybe they'd have him do a medley with like all those songs. Be like, okay, pick the tamest parts of like all of this Drake feud, and just do those as a medley, and then you can get into your, like Blood, or one of the other big hits that they do. And I think it's going to be an incredible halftime show. I think he's going to put on. I think it might be the best one since like Bruno Mars, and they're both little guys. I don't know if that's got anything to do with it, but I think the smaller the package, the bigger the entertainer.
Hey, good for them. I'll take that trade off. I take a small package and big talent.
Well, were there any like specific songs you wanted to make sure that you called out as jumped out at you as special more than the others?
I mean, I don't know why I feel this way, that it's like chuggy to pick the first song on the album as like a standout to you, but Whacked Out Murals grabbed me by the
Mm-hmm.
nutsack and twisted,
Mm-hmm.
where it was just like, someone has defaced the Kendrick Lamar mural. Ooh, and like that's the jumping off point. For like one of the biggest, again, album placement is such a big thing. This is a big ass song, and it's an explosive way to start the album, and it doesn't dip from there, because when it goes right into Squabble Up,
Mm-hmm.
that we're still riding high on that energy. And then like really any good concert, like when I was doing the 90s cover band with Tanner and all those guys, you got to play like 3 rockers, and then you kind of got to relax. Let the singer relax, let the people come down, grab a tequila at the
Mm-hmm.
bar. You structure it a certain way. So going Whacked Out Murals into Squabble Up into Luther, which, talk about hitting me center mass. It's just a little yachty. It's horrendously smooth,
Mm-hmm.
super creamy R&B vibes. SZA and Kendrick Lamar are perfect together. It's paradise for an R&B guy. I feel so much in common with fucking Teddy Pendergrass and Luther Vandross and Barry White.
I think I leaned more towards the like more aggressive songs, like TV Off was fantastic, just because that moment in the middle when he just yells mustard, like that moment, I'm like, oh, just
It's
sends a
great.
chill through your bones. It's like the I Prevail song, Gasoline, that you just listened to, where it like it hits right at the beginning. It was like straight into my veins. That's how it felt. Squabble Up, fantastic. Whacked Out Murals, what I found crazy about that song is immediately like first verse, is taking jabs at Lil Wayne, and not necessarily like directly at him, but just being like, "Why are you mad? Like I loved you growing up, and you're just mad at me. Like why?" And I think it's got to do with that he's associated with Drake, and then also the Super Bowl's in New Orleans where Lil Wayne is from, and he didn't get asked to do it, and I think he's a little perturbed about that. But like one of the biggest rap stars of the last 20 years, one of the best selling rappers of all time, Lil Wayne, and your first verse out on this song, on this album, is you're talking to him. So it's like immediately you kind of knew the gloves were completely off on this. There was no place he wasn't going to go because there's certain fights you pick and certain fights you don't. And I think when you're at a comfortable level like Kendrick Lamar, the only reason you're picking those fights is because you really want to. You're not needing to worry about your career being over, whatever. You're solid. You're established. You're good. He said that stuff because he wanted to, and he knew the impact it was going to have, and he didn't care. That's the thing, is the bravery, the boldness it takes to say and do all these things. So not only are you going to come out with an album like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, where you're like pretty emotionally vulnerable throughout the whole thing, and there's some good and some bad about how you're acting and things like that, but very self-reflective, not typical of the rappers that are known for like the really kind of hardcore, maybe more gangster rap and stuff like that. Like DMX would have some heartfelt songs, but what I think DMX is most known for to more casual people is the songs like Party Up and What's My Name and Rough Riders Anthem, and these more aggressive ones. For me, like I love the aggressive ones, and I love the fact that he can do the softer ones, that he can do something like Dodger Blue that's a little smoother, and something like Luther that's a little smoother. And those were the songs that really gave me the real like California West Coast sort of vibes. Like that was the thing, is I feel like with Kendrick, for whatever reason, when artists can like make you feel where they're from, like when Notorious B.I.G. would talk about New York, it like you could feel it. Same thing when DMX would talk about Yonkers, when Eminem would talk about Detroit. It's like you kind of felt where they were coming from. And I think being able to do that means you're very immersed in your neighborhoods, in your cultures, in your areas, in your state. Whatever it is, like it well enough that you can rap about it and talk about it like the back of your hand. And every part of this album just screams California. It just screams like I don't think he's trying to bring back any sort of like East Coast, West Coast feud type of thing. But I think what he's trying to say is like California never stopped being like proud of itself, and like it's never stopped being a great place to be from, and like having a great area to be proud of. And as much as I stings, seeing the song titled Dodger Blue after the Yankees just lost to them in the World Series, that was a great song. It's an absolutely fantastic song. And then speaking of the Dodgers, the singer that's like uncredited through most of this album, I think she's on like 2 or 3 different songs. He was at a Dodger game and heard a mariachi band that she was singing for, and basically asked her, like gave her contact information, basically like asked her to be on the album because he liked how she sounded. Just the like random person performing at the Dodger game. And he was like, I want you to be on my album. So now that woman, like, because she was at that game performing, is on one of the biggest albums of the year. I mean, just like wild to think of all the things he accomplished with this.
And that's like a great story and a great moment, but it's also the fact that he heard that and he knew. And clearly didn't lock into it in a gimmicky way, being like, it would be funny. He heard something in it and was like, oh yeah, I can and will incorporate that. I think that speaks to, again, that relationship with Jack Antonoff. And one of the like strengths of this is I really love the Tyler the Creator album, but that was highly entertaining, frequently getting real sloppy. Like it was a pot of chili filled all the way to the top and you're driving to the work function. That stuff might slosh a little bit. It's going to stay in the pot if you know what you're doing and you drive the speed limit. But you're absolutely fucked if you hit a pothole. And then you have something like this, which is tightly controlled chaos. Like the production on it there's a stability to the way that this is produced and the way that this is laid out, where Kendrick Lamar is doing things as interesting as Tyler the Creator is doing on his album. Because you know me, I like the weird,
Mhm.
kind of like fun experimental
The same.
elements of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're interesting guys.
Yeah.
And I just look at the two executions of that, where Tyler the Creator is just kind of like, oh, he's off the map. And Kendrick is like, I have a clear sense of an interesting direction I'm trying to go. Tyler the Creator kind of finds it. Kendrick knows exactly where he's going. And I love the contrast between those two albums. I love those two styles. And I just think, like, maybe it's corny when we're like, this is craft. This is a craftsman. Like he's building a canoe. But this is craft.
It's a pretty nice canoe.
I have no criticisms of this album. I can't make one up. I can't make one, even force one. So why am I stopping short of being like, it's genius? I don't know. Something about me feels unqualified to call it genius, but it's a fucking magnetic piece of work. It's a clear and present by it.
I think a good way to describe it is, I believe this is one of the best albums by one of the defining artists of this generation, which lands it in the high end of the buy it category. I think it needs a little bit more time before, because this has been only been out for a week, 2 weeks, maybe. It's only been out for a short time, and I kind of want to give it a chance to like ruminate a little bit. It could very well end up being where I'm like, okay, this is among the greatest albums that, I don't know of all time, but that we've done on the show, might land in that category. But I think the safe bet to say and kind of really emphasize how good this album is we know how good Kendrick Lamar is. He is one of the defining like rap artists of this generation. It's him, it's Drake, it's Tyler the Creator. There's a handful of people that have consistently put out at least a handful of albums that have all been good to great. And this is on the great side. I think for me, this is my favorite kind of Kendrick. Is you get the variety of Kendrick. You get that sort of, you get these introspection like you get in Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, but the kind of mirror he's looking into is a funhouse mirror that's making him 8 feet tall. He's seeing like the best versions of himself on this album versus the worst versions of himself, like you saw in the last one. I think when you have an artist that can make such distinct pieces of work, like when you can talk about To Pimp a Butterfly versus Damn versus Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers versus Good Kid, Mad City versus GNX, when each of those albums has like such a distinct, different feel to them, and they're all great, that means that, that artist is also great. This album is fantastic. It's a clear buy it for me. And we'll see. We've got the end of the year awards coming up. We'll see if this one lands up there somewhere, Alex.
It's certainly possible. Anything can and will happen on this podcast. I mean, you hear us waxing poetic about all of the things that Kendrick Lamar does so well, that makes him so unique in a world where you really do have these luminaries staking their claim and doing unique things. Kendrick Lamar, to me, is doing the most unique thing, the most interesting thing to me. And he does so many things so well. And, we did an episode about Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers not too long ago. 2 years ago? 2022? Probably. Is that when that came out? I think that's
Sounds
when that came
right.
out. I would like confirmation on this, but I'm going to leave that up to the viewers at youtube.com/C/out on that line. Folks, I'm not here to spoon feed information to you in the information age, okay? You can go out and get that yourself. You're curious what we had to say about Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. You go hit the playlist and find back episodes of the podcast. Stop by and sample a reaction video while you're there. They're pretty good. People seem downright chuffed with our reaction content. And I think that's great. And if you want to make sure you don't miss out on these, you have to make sure that you are subscribed, that the notification bell is on so that you hear about it when these things come down the pike. You should definitely like the video. Helps us out a lot. And leaving comments is the most helpful thing of all. The subscriber count is great, but the comments are what shove us up in the algorithm, like trying to shove your fist deep up inside a honeypot like Winnie the Pooh. You thought I was going to say butthole based on my past behavior because of things that I've said on this show. And if you want context for the agent of chaos that I think that I am, but I'm probably not even that cool, so I can't give myself that nickname. If you want to see all of this neurosis play out, you have to go to youtube.com/C/out on that line.
That was beautiful. Until next time.